I had lived in my neighborhood for nearly 7 years without a single problem. My pickup truck sat in my driveway, exactly where it always had. Everything was perfectly legal, until our HOA elected a new president. My truck wasn't anything unusual. It was my daily driver and my work vehicle. The neighbors knew me well, but HOA Karen had different opinions. Karen claimed my truck made the neighborhood look too commercial. She insisted it violated community standards. I politely asked her to show me the rule. She couldn't. Over the next several weeks, Karen sent me multiple violation notices. Each one demanded that I remove my truck from my own driveway. I refused, because private property rights still matter. One Friday morning, I left town for an overnight business trip. My truck remained parked safely in my driveway. Or at least, that's what I thought. I couldn't have been more wrong. Karen called a towing company and falsely claimed the truck had been abandoned. She told them she represented the HOA and had authority to authorize its removal. The tow operator relied on the information provided. The truck was loaded and towed away. Unfortunately for Karen, my entire property was protected by security cameras. Every conversation had been recorded. Every action had been documented. The truth was safely stored in high definition. When I returned home the following day, my truck was gone. At first, I thought it had been stolen. Then, my neighbor showed me photographs of the tow truck leaving my driveway. That's when I called the police. The responding officers immediately began their investigation. They reviewed the security footage and spoke with witnesses. It didn't take long for them to realize something wasn't right. The story was beginning to unravel. Karen thought she had successfully removed my truck from the neighborhood. Instead, she had created a much bigger problem for herself, and the police investigation had only just begun. The responding officers immediately began interviewing witnesses. Several neighbors confirmed that my truck had been parked legally in my driveway. No one had ever considered it abandoned. Karen's story was already falling apart. The towing company cooperated fully with the investigation. They provided signed authorization forms submitted by Karen. She claimed she had legal authority to order the tow. That statement would soon become a major problem. Security footage captured everything. Karen personally instructed the tow operator to remove my truck. She repeatedly claimed that HOA rules allowed her to do so. Unfortunately for her, HOA rules don't override private property rights. County records clearly show that both the house and driveway belonged exclusively to me. No HOA easements existed over my property. Karen had absolutely no authority to authorize a tow. The facts couldn't have been clearer. The HOA board learned about Karen's actions during an emergency meeting. Several members were stunned. They had never approved any towing action whatsoever. Karen had acted entirely on her own. Officers interviewed Karen regarding the incident. She insisted she believed she was enforcing HOA regulations. The officers politely explained that HOA authority has legal limits. Private driveways are not HOA-owned parking lots. My attorney carefully reviewed the HOA bylaws. There wasn't a single provision granting Karen authority to tow vehicles from private property. The HOA documents actually protected homeowners' property rights. Karen simply ignored them. Fortunately, the towing company returned my truck immediately after learning the truth. They apologized for relying on false information. Thankfully, the vehicle was completely undamaged. The situation could have been much worse. Residents quickly began questioning HOA leadership practices. Many homeowners shared their own experiences involving unreasonable violation notices. Karen's actions had opened a much larger conversation within the neighborhood. Positive change was finally beginning. County officials used the incident as an opportunity to educate residents about property rights. Homeowners learned that HOA authority must always operate within the law. Private ownership protections exist for a reason. Knowledge truly is power. The HOA board immediately began discussing governance reforms. New policies were proposed requiring legal review before future enforcement actions. Transparency became the board's highest priority. Residents welcomed the changes. My insurance company documented the entire incident. Fortunately, my financial losses were minimal. The most important thing was ensuring that nothing similar could happen again. Property rights deserve protection. Community support continued growing throughout the investigation. Residents appreciated seeing the matter resolved peacefully and legally. Everyone benefited from learning more about HOA limitations. The neighborhood was moving in the right direction. For the first time in weeks, my truck was exactly where it belonged, back in my driveway, safe, and fully protected by the law. Karen eventually stepped down from her HOA leadership position. She acknowledged that mistakes had been made during the dispute. The community was ready to move forward respectfully. Accountability had finally arrived. The neighborhood elected new HOA leadership shortly afterward. Respect for private property became one of their primary commitments. Residents finally felt heard and represented. Trust was slowly being restored. Local officers later participated in a neighborhood property rights seminar. Residents learned valuable information about HOA regulations and private ownership laws. Education remains one of the best tools for preventing future conflicts. Everyone left better informed. Life eventually returned to normal. Neighbors stopped by for weekend cookouts and community events. What began as an HOA dispute ultimately brought the neighborhood closer together. Sometimes difficult situations create positive outcomes. Looking back, this situation was never really about my truck. It was about respecting private property and understanding the limits of HOA authority. Those principles protect every homeowner equally, and they always should. Karen thought she could tow my truck simply because she didn't like seeing it in the neighborhood. Instead, she learned that property rights don't disappear when an HOA disagrees with your choices. Because when the law and the facts are on your side, the truth always has a way of finding its way home.